Hey, buddy boy. I've got some work to do now, okay? I do. Okay, alright. Give me some space now, bud. Yeah, I know. This is invasive. This is a little invasive. Sweet baby boy. Oh, okay. Alright. Thank you. Haven't tried the other side yet, have you? Okay, I've got to work, okay?
Well, hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe, and welcome to the third video in the series about the Perfect Neighbor documentary that hit Netflix, centered around Susan Lorincz and her crime against Ajika Owens and all of that. Go and watch the other two videos first if you haven't done that yet. Let's go ahead and roll the intro, though. All right, before diving directly into the analysis of this video, go ahead, like I said, watch the other two videos that I've done on this case. Also, go and watch the Netflix documentary itself. There's a lot that's in there that I didn't include in my videos because it wasn't as pertinent to the nonverbal communication side of things, but it adds a lot of context, a lot of narrative to add a lot of clarity to the videos that I've put out here. So go and do that. This one should not be claimed by Netflix, as this footage is not owned by Netflix, but who knows? You know, the other two were completely claimed and demonetized. Thank you for those of you that were able to go to Patreon and memberships to kind of help support the channel to make those sorts of videos happen. This is a prison interview that was released a couple months ago. We'll be able to see whether or not she takes ownership of things, accountability, things like that. Let's go ahead and start.
I first want to start here. You were convicted of manslaughter.
Yes.
Sentenced to 25 years.
Yes.
You are 61 now.
Yes.
You might be in your mid-80s before you leave here, or you might not leave here at all. How have you reconciled that?
Day by day, and going to a lot of services, leaning on God, getting into the Word.
Talk to me about that. You attended a church in Ocala, is that right?
Yes.
And you also sang in the choir?
Yes.
So as someone of faith, how did you end up here?
A very unfortunate series of events.
All right. I think that the 25 years that she got is well justified, and the fact that she might be 85 or a little later than that when she gets out really it doesn't weigh too much on me morally. It is a good question that's asked by the interviewer. How can a person who professes faith end up in a position like this? And this is an instance of Lorincz being able to take some ownership to this, but instead she shifts that responsibility, that ownership, and that accountability from herself to a lot of bad stuff happened, circumstances happened, and stuff kind of just pushed me into this area. So with that, verbally, we're able to tell that she's not taking any level of accountability with what she's done, her actions of this. That does continue to play out through this interview. You'll be able to see it regularly as we go on through.
Take me back to June of 2023. What do you know specifically of that day?
I remember the kids screaming and yelling. I had a migraine headache. I was in my bedroom, shut everything down, closed curtains. Everything was dark. And when they finally left, I had to pack up a computer for my work to ship back to the home office. So I wanted to do that, and I didn't realize the children were still outside. There were 3 boys, and they were very close to my sidewalk, and they had their skates around and stuff. I had fallen over a skate, and I said, guys, pick up your skates, and they were like, no. And I said, kids, pick up your skates and please leave. You're trespassing. You know you're trespassing. And the kid said, I'm going to kill you. If I can't kill you, I'm going to find someone to kill you. I had called the sheriff's department as soon as he threatened me. And I said, this is insane. This little kid is threatening me. And, you know, just the way he said it made me so uncomfortable. There had been multitude of threats prior to that. The children said they would set me on fire.
we've got some things to be able to go through here. So as we're walking through the day with her, again, the solution that I had found in the prior videos of her having issues with the neighborhood kids being neighborhood kids was to invest in earplugs or in some headphones that you could wear, noise canceling or not. Just find ways that you can mitigate the noise yourself without getting law enforcement involved, because frankly, throughout this, as anybody who watched the body cam footage could see, getting law enforcement involved for kids playing is not warranted. Also, in this, again, what she's done now with her narrative presentation here is that she's presented herself to be this most level-headed person that is not emotionally driven. The kids are being problematic, but I just asked them, can you please take your skates and go ahead and go? And that's what she liked to present to everybody, to the public. She presented it to her church community. She presented it to law enforcement especially. But if you've watched the prior videos or the documentary, there are instances where when she's not expecting a visit, she's not ready to put up a show for anybody, and she's confronted with any form of what could even be perceived as confrontational action, then she immediately starts to fly off the handle, becomes very aggressive.
1 minute! Jeez.
Along with that, throughout a lot of the body cam footage or 911 calls that you're able to watch the documentaries and the videos, you can hear her aggression regularly. Even in prison, she's still trying to present herself out to be a specific way when the visual evidence, the physical evidence confirms that her behavior is not that. And so that kind of lets us know walking into this that this is going to be a manipulation interview for her. She has nothing to lose here, so she's going to do everything she can to paint herself out to be as perfect as she can. And she's also had some time to think about that as well. So what we can anticipate as a viewer, since she's been so manipulative and deceitful in the past, is that now she will try to be more clever with that manipulation and deceit. The likelihood of her being a genuine, honest, authentic person now, and she's just trying to save face, is minimal at best. So these are just aspects that we need to be able to keep in mind as we're continuing on forward through this. Just wanted to make note.
And they took one of the no trespassing signs, set it on fire, and then put it on my porch, and they said, "You're next." So when he said this, I'm like, oh my God, it takes a second. Squirt somebody with some lighter fluid, and they left the lighter fluid with the burnt sign. And I'm thinking, they're going to set me on fire. So I went back into the house and I called. The first phone call dropped and I had to call him back again. And so I told him what had transpired it was a really horrible connection. And they just said, wait. So I locked the bottom lock and I waited. Next thing I know, I had to go to the bathroom. So I quick went to the bathroom. I had put my phone down where.
All right, I'm going to pause here to point out some of the issues that I'm having with what her narrative is being presented as. So she's now brought up this being set on fire aspect of things, which, watching through everything that I had available to me, there was no instance of her mentioning that I was able to track down. Now, that also being said, there's always the possibility that there was a conversation that I didn't see or a phone call that wasn't logged or presented. Not certain on that, but this aspect of being set on fire has been brought up. Now, in the documentary, there is a portion where she is talking about this sign and it had been set on fire, but it's not focused on in the documentary. It's very briefly passed through. That conversation does not happen the day of the incident. To me, then I'm wondering, were there multiple instances of them burning these signs and throwing them at her or presenting them to her? It leaves me exclusively questioning, because never once was fire, being set on fire, the risk of being set on fire brought up within the emergency calls that she's mentioning here. And they weren't featured in the documentary except for that one little blip. And so it feels to me that this aspect, again, where she's now bringing up, I was at risk of being set on fire, I feel like this is yet another point of her attempting to over-amplify what was going on to make herself out, again, to be a victim. She's the one who's been attacked here and everything's bad for her. Another point of possible manipulation there that I have a lot of difficulty making timelines line up, and that's where I've landed on this. This is likely manipulation. Now, along with that, what we're hearing non-verbally in that is it's not based off of her words, but her tone behind that. You can hear that this interview is making her a fair bit nervous, and you can hear that on occasion with some of the jitteriness in her tone. Now, that could be because it's a prison interview. It's one of the few, I'm assuming, that she's been able to give here. And so maybe she's feeling nervous. The other possibility for us to consider is that she might be trying to lie again, and it's making her feel a little bit uncomfortable doing that. Just things to be able to keep in mind as we're going on through.
I left the computer, and I forgot where I put the phone. Banging on the door, banging on the door. I thought, oh my goodness, the cops are here so quick. They must have been in the area. And I said, 1 minute. As soon as I said 1 minute, she went on a tirade, expletives and just horrible language, screaming at me, pounding on the door so hard. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, you need to leave. You're trespassing. You were told not to come here by the sheriff's department. You know you're trespassing. You need to leave. And then she said, I'm going to effing kill you. And I went, oh my God. And she's pounding and she's pounding and she's pounding. And I just, I was terrified.
Lorintz's point of you're trespassing and you're not allowed to do that, technically, if you remove all of the context around it, is true. We could even see that in the body cam footage. Everybody was instructed, don't go onto the property, don't do things like that. She specifically requested blah, blah, blah. However, again, that's removing the context. That's removing the situation itself and looking at one small slice of it and trying to focus in on that. So again, Lorincz is painting this scenario out of she has done nothing to inspire these actions. She hasn't thrown profanity around. She hasn't been aggressive towards children. She hasn't called the cops 18 billion times about ridiculous things. She's just trying to kind of wash all of that out of there and focus on, well, Ajika was coming up to my door and she was trespassing and I had asked for, that can't be the case. And so realistically thinking about it, this is kind of Ajika's fault. Yet another attempt to displace responsibility, to move it to somebody else. And that happens repeatedly.
There was a lot made during trial and even when detectives were interviewing you about the loudness of the pounding, and you had said multiple times, I'm fearful of my life. You still contend that?
Oh God, yes. It just made me so, it gave me a panic attack, actually. She was pounding so hard. She had previously done this and had broken my door frame in December of 2022. So I was like, she broke the door frame once. She's going to end up coming through the store.
Immediate response of, yeah, I'm holding to, I was afraid for my life, which none of us, I guess, were there, so we can't really claim that. But if we're going to use her patterns that she's had in the past, she was afraid for her life by tripping over a skate. She was afraid for her life by kids picking on her. She was afraid for her life by somebody approaching a gate that she was driving her truck into. She was afraid for her life at just about every instance, according to her. So for her to say, I was afraid for my life, at very best, it's watered down. At very best. At very worst, she's lying through her teeth there. And some of the things that might push me towards her lying, and that would be a little bit of that leaning back and tucking up her chin that she does when she says, oh God, yes. She kind of leans back ever so slightly and tucks her chin ever so slightly. That could be creating distance and doing some defensiveness with the protection of the neck like that. But that's not really a strong case to stand on, at least in my opinion. It's a couple of tells around that. So I can't say, oh, she's definitely lying. She was not at all afraid. Maybe she was afraid to some level, but with perspective, with context, and an understanding of her patterns, that I was afraid has far less meaning. She has now cried wolf so many times that when there is the possibility of there being a wolf involved or a scenario that's negative, it's very, very difficult to actually believe what she's saying because she's devalued her own word so many times in the past. She also then mentions on this time that Ajika had apparently broken her door frame by banging on the door in the past. And she lists a very specific date. To me, that is interesting. That's a very specific date that was very easily accessed. It makes me wonder why that didn't come up at any other point in any of the footage or calls that we saw. I feel like that would be some pertinent information even for the police to know, something along those lines, which then, if it had been, what my question is, what would then devalue that outside of, again, her own relentless bickering with children, which she does afterwards non-verbally. When she says that, she does a little flash of contempt in there, which that contempt, for those of you that do not know, contempt is the feeling of moral or intellectual superiority to whoever you're talking to, an instance, what have you. So that feeling of moral or intellectual superiority. So she says that thing, she has the little contempt, and then she does a little attitude head bob in there as well, which is really brief. To me, that makes me feel like she feels like she has some sort of superiority in this. Oh, well, there was this one time that nobody can actually corroborate with, but there was this one time that Ajika nearly splintered my door frame, and that was on this date, and that's some big stuff to lend towards me fearing for my life. Again, we as the audience are simply just left questioning, is that, one, really what happened? And two, is you fearing for your life, should that be taken to the severity that it really normally demands due to the patterns that she's already shown where that's not the case? Maybe there's a lot of context that wasn't included in the body cam footages and the calls and things like that. Maybe, possibly. But from what we have seen, okay. All right, Susan's afraid for her life again. I wonder what mediocre, minute thing has caused it. Anyway.
So take me back behind the decision then of you going into your bedroom, taking the gun out of the trash can, possibly knowing that you could use it. And you did. You shot once.
Yes, once. I was aiming for the top left corner of the door, and she pounded so hard that I could hear the frame crack. And it did. It splintered the frame. And when she did that, I went like this, and I pulled the trigger.
And this is part of why I have issues with just anybody owning a gun. That's not okay. Like, I get being afraid and whatnot. Until you are prepared to shoot, do not have your finger on a trigger, period. That's gun safety 101. And the fact also that she was saying here in this story that she was going to shoot in the upper whatever corner of the door. Why? Why would you shoot that? They're going to say here in a second, so that was going to be a warning shot. Why would you shoot it towards somebody then? If there's a door, like shooting towards somebody visually, that makes sense. Like if they're in your house and you're like, I'm going to shoot a warning shot, shoot towards them. They could see you. That's a risk, things like that. If it's through a completely opaque door, you can't see out. Why would you shoot in her direction? If she just wanted to do a warning shot, she could have shot at the ground. She could have shot anywhere else, but she shot in the direction, at her best story, in the direction of the person banging on the door. In that instance, if that had worked out perfectly and she had shot through the door and it went out through the corner, one, that door obviously didn't stop the bullet, and she didn't consider the fact that shooting out a door like that could still hurt somebody else in a neighborhood. It's questionable judgment at best. So there was a slew of things around that as well that I found at least just problematic. It's not great. Even at best, it's not great.
Because even in my questioning and the police report, I said, I don't remember firing the gun. I just know the gun went off and I heard it. She said, ow. And I thought, oh crap, I hit her. And I thought, how in God's green earth did I, aim for that left corner and I hit her? I couldn't figure things out.
Was the upper left corner more of a warning shot?
Yes, absolutely.
So you did not intend to shoot her?
No.
And hit her?
No, never.
Is Susan Lorincz capable of manslaughter?
No. And I'm so, it just makes me sick what happened. I just never ever thought in a million years this would happen. And it breaks my heart. I mean, I don't know. I can't take it back. I can't replace her. I can't say, I did an apology to the family, and I'm still so sorry. And I know her kids are without a mom, and I know that it's been hard on her mom. I know everybody's hurting. I wish I could change things.
So there's that whole string of instances there where she refuses to take accountability. She acknowledges the effect of the instance. Kids don't have a mom. That's terrible. I'm so sorry. Wish I could take it back. But when it comes around to her being able to take that ownership to things, I shot somebody. I was negligent with a firearm. I panicked. I behaved poorly in an area, and I found a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And that solution ended up being somebody lost their life. And that was my fault. Instead of her doing that, she's like, oh, man, it was just everything happened, and all the stuff that would happen was so bad things, and all of these environmental things that were going badly were bad things that I had happen to me, and I really didn't have any ownership in that. It was the scenario. It was everything else that caused this to happen. And so this is one of those instances where I was saying it's a more intelligent or a more subtle manipulation, because she's using aspects of acknowledging the effect of an instance and then also trying to divert responsibility. And so for just an average person listening, it almost sounds like she tries to take ownership, but she's not. She's acknowledging that somebody was shot, but she doesn't acknowledge that she's the one who caused that instance.
Some people have also asked, why not wait for the cops to arrive instead of shooting her?
Because when I called, when the kids said they would set me on fire, Marion County Sheriff's Department never showed up. I ended up having to go there, show them the sign, show them the lighter fluid days later when I finally had a break in work.
So now this is the instance again where earlier, just a second ago, she had painted this all out to be part of what inspired this. Now she's admitting that this was a totally other different day, but still trying to use a different day's instance to justify the actions that she was doing there, and also completely circumventing the fact that the police might not have responded to her complaints nearly as quickly because she had complained about everything. And so maybe even in her narrative, her world that she's presenting here, maybe the police didn't go immediately to her aid about this fire situation because she had complained about a sign being thrown at her. She had complained about a roller skate. She had called the children horrifically racist things. She had complained about trespassing on land that wasn't hers. She had done a laundry list of things to devalue her word. Her point of view doesn't matter as much due to her actions. And she just doesn't seem to acknowledge that. That doesn't sink into her that maybe she's responsible for where she is. Like maybe this is her fault that she is where she is. Just a thought, but that's not a thought that will ever occur to her.
So I thought, they can come, they cannot come.
Also, that's not it either. If you aren't sure about law enforcement's timing of things, to take that into your own hands with violence and fatality, that's just not the answer either. Just because you're not certain that the law enforcement is coming on the timeline that you want them to come on does not mean that you are then allowed to kill anybody like that, like this scenario. Obviously, there's other scenarios that will change the dynamic of all of this. But in this scenario, that's still not a reason. Just because she didn't know doesn't mean that she could do.
Why should we listen to you now?
Because I have proof that the children lied. And again, when you're dealing with young children, you know.
Interesting. So when this response is coming out here and she's saying that she has proof that the children lied, you could see off of the screen, it's hard to see, but you see her arms start to move a bit, and I'm assuming that probably is some fidgeting that's down there around on her legs and pants. And that fidgeting, that's self-soothing. It crops up when anxiety and stress starts to come in. So she's starting to feel a little stressed around that and answering that. And then along with that, she goes from holding decent eye contact. There's obviously some breaking of eye contact in there, which happens fairly regularly in social situations, but she was holding decent eye contact. And now when she's talking about, I have this evidence that the kids lied, she starts breaking eye contact heavily and starts to do some fidgeting. Now, to me, that spike in her nonverbal communication there from her baseline makes me feel like that might not be so true. Or if it is true, something about it is causing her to feel overtly anxious and nervous while trying to present that, and so much so that it's making it hard for her to hold her gaze while she says that. So I have a lot of questions in regards to her saying that she has proof that the kids lied.
You know that they're going to make mistakes. He told his mother, I hit him. So I understand when she first came to that door and she was raging, I did not know what happened. I mean, to me, I thought she was having a psychotic break, or she was high on something, or she was just, I just thought, oh my God, what is going on here?
To me, that seems a little bit more revealing. Again, this entire case has such overt racist undertones to it. Like everything about it just seems to function around that, which she denies heavily, which we'll get to that in a second. Her immediate conclusion is that the mother is having a psychotic breakdown or is high on something. I just have questions of whether or not that would have been her immediate thought had it not been somebody who was a different race than her. I'm not certain on that, but I do have some questions, and the fact that she immediately jumps to breakdown or drugs high on something kind of feels a bit racist to me as well. But that might be reaching. I don't want to lend or hang too much on that, but I don't know. To me, that rubbed me a little bit wrong. That's kind of just more of my own personal opinion rather than something that we can boil that around to, if that makes sense. Wanted to call light to that, though. And again, like I said, we'll revisit that racist aspect here in a second.
Is going on here? When I found out he lied to his mom, I'm thinking, she came home from work, she was tired. All she wanted to do was put her feet up, and he tells her, I hit him. When the prosecutor asked the child, where were you hit? He said, oh, she never hit me. That's in his testimony. And the prosecutor knew he dropped the charges for assault battery.
Apparently what the kids were saying was never actually admitted as evidence.
Well, I can tell you the state attorney's office did send us a statement, and they told us specifically they did not call the children as witnesses during this trial. They also did not introduce any of the children's deposition testimony as evidence.
So that doesn't mean anything. That didn't have any hold anyway. Yeah, if that wasn't used as evidence in court, then that doesn't matter.
Then the children lied about their location. He said he was right next to his mother when she was shot. He was 60 feet away at the mailboxes.
Ooh, what a great point, Susan. When you shot his mom, he wasn't right next to her. When you shot his mom, he was some feet away. Wow. I mean, I feel bad for Lorincz now. She's throwing that out there like that proves a good point for her. It doesn't.
Do you think that there were any missteps in the investigation?
Oh, yes, many. I think once those children had said that it was a racial matter, they're like, oh my God, she's a racist. And that's just not true. I was married to a Middle Eastern man who was Muslim. My nephew is part black. I've had black friends since I was 5 years old. I grew up in Passaic, New Jersey, very, very diverse, demographic. And I have black friends here in jail. And I'm like, oh my God, it's not true. It's emphatically not true.
Just as a reminder, she has called the kids and the neighborhood people the N-word, which then she tried to excuse away by saying, oh, I just thought that meant dirty and unlawful, which is also racist. And if you watch the documentary itself, you can see multitudes of instances where the racist undertones of her actions shine through very clearly. Despite her connections to whoever she might have had in the past or claims she had, her behavior was still racist. And just because you can be around people of other races does not mean that you yourself are not racist. Just throwing that out there. Along with that, I have some difficulty with the amount of defensiveness that comes in there. There's some shruggings, there's constant no shakings during that. Another part where she's saying that she has a family member that's part black, she has a little laugh in there as well of overt nervousness and anxiety. Then all of that pushes me to believe that this little list of people that she's trying to line up to prove that she's not racist is I feel probably a little doctored, so to speak. But yeah, that was that instance where I was saying earlier, we're going to get to the racial side of things.
Susan Lorincz is not a racist.
No, sir. Not at all.
That re-amplification. No, sir, not at all. Not even me, not even a tiny bit. It is reminiscent of the other times that she had adamantly denied things that were overtly and very easily provably true. And so for her to be doing that here again, it sticks with one of her patterns that she's done in the past, and I just wanted to call light to it yet again that there is the distinct possibility that she is compensating due to the fact that she is in fact racist. Who would have guessed that she would try to manipulate around yet again?
Our viewers may be watching this saying, why are you giving her an opportunity to speak? And again, for that, you would say what?
Because I want the truth to come out. I just want people to know the truth, that I am not a racist, that I did not do this on purpose. This was not, a premeditated thing. I had no animosity for this woman.
You say no animosity, but police had been called to your place numerous times before. We have the body camera video too. There's got to be some animosity.
Okay, moving by her answer as to, oh, I want the truth to come out and all of that, like that's easily anticipatable. Anybody who's in her position that's trying to say these sorts of things is going to claim that. Cool, great, cool. The visual evidence that we saw really is flying in the face of what her truth that she's presenting is, but cool. Regardless, then she tries to deny animosity with Ajika, the person she shot because there was a conflict. To me, that's baffling. Like I can't I can't get into the mindset of being in that position and being like, considering where I am, I'm now going to try to claim that I didn't even have animosity. Obvious and overt manipulation. Horrifically so. Like that's so manipulative to say I didn't even have animosity with these people. That's a lie. Interviewer is like, I don't know about that. This scenario kind of seems to be rather filled with animosity. What do you mean you had no animosity? So now she's going to have to try to go back on her words. And what she does is an interesting attempt at manipulation again.
I try not to hold it against a person. You know, I've made my fair share of mistakes, and I wouldn't want somebody to retain anger against me. You know, like I said, we all have bad days. Just get over it and move on, because if you hold on to that, your life's going to be miserable.
I thought that was kind of a poetic way to wrap up that portion of the interview. There's a little bit more around this. I cut out some of the areas that I just felt weren't very interesting or engaging non-verbally. Her response is, okay, well, maybe there was animosity, but I just try not to even hold on to animosity because, you know, why do that? And then she gets around to manipulation. And I hope that people wouldn't hold on to animosity towards me. I hope that they would just, to quote her, get over it, which all of this is great and great advice. Honestly, holding a grudge against somebody, most of the time, the only person that really affects most is the person holding the grudge. So that could be generally a decent idea. That with the instance that we're talking about here, I don't think that that's the best way to present this, Lorincz. I don't think that you should be suggesting that anybody not be upset at you and to just get over it. To me, that makes me feel like you don't understand the weight of what's happened. Then her wrapping up about being like, and people who are just that way end up very miserable. And out of at least the two people in that room, I can guarantee you there's one person that's more miserable than the other, and who would have guessed who it was? Even in trying to acknowledge the implications and the weight of the instance itself that she caused, she still doesn't accept responsibility for the action. She says she doesn't remember the gun going off. She doesn't remember all these things and didn't do all of these things. And her story throughout all of this is it wasn't her fault. She did nothing wrong. She was, to quote her from the documentary and from the videos, she was the perfect neighbor. But that is my final, I think, honestly, final analysis on the Susan Lorincz situation. Done with this case, unless there's something big that happens or something that y'all are like, we really need more on this. I think that this tidies it all up with the bow. If you did enjoy this video and the series of videos and would like to see more true crime or anything like that, go ahead and hit subscribe and let me know kind of some of the cases that you might like to see in the comments of the video. Like I said, if you want to be able to help support the channel, especially when I release videos that are claimed, which I've been doing a lot recently, I appreciate Patreon and memberships if you can. I totally get that too. Like, the economy is what the economy is right now. So that totally makes sense. So I appreciate the help if you're able to, and if you're not, I appreciate you being here for a view or a subscribe or whatever you're able to do. But without further ado, that's all that I've got for the day. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome, as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.